Scientists, happy Thursday. I hope you all had a wonderful Wellness Wednesday yesterday. If you haven't gotten a chance to, make sure to check out the slides that I posted yesterday, which have really helpful tips as to how to clean up your Google Drive in order to make it a really effective tool for you, as well as our Pride VIPs for the week. So make sure to check out that slideshow. Again, I posted it yesterday onto the stream of our Google Classroom, so check it out. So for today is the 23rd. It is Thursday, and you are already on step 1, which is watching this video. And step 2 is that we are going to kind of share out what we learned yesterday. So yesterday you watched a video on how humans have taken steps to domesticating wild foxes. You guys had amazing noticings and wonderings. You had great explanations as to how this works. So I kind of looked at your noticings, looked at your wonderings, looked at your explanations, and I tried to put them all together here into a class consensus model similar to what we do in science class. So on our class model, we kind of start with some foxes in the wild. Then we pick the friendliest foxes with these friendly genes, and we breed them together. And then we keep doing this and keep doing this and keep doing this, keep picking the friendliest foxes, keep picking the friendliest foxes, breed them together. And then decades later, we've got about 70% of foxes with the elite level of friendliness. So here we've got the domesticated foxes. And the experiment that scientists did to figure out whether or not they're friendly is that they drew a 1-meter radius circle around a human, and they observed how much time out of 3 minutes those foxes spent in the circle. They noticed that the foxes don't really relax near the humans. They do go near them, and they aren't aggressive or anything, but like they're tame. They're just not super friendly. They're not super socialized. So you guys had really awesome noticings about that. You also had really awesome questions. Another thing is that it compared them to dogs, and the dog went right up to the human, started like licking his face, like wanted to be all over the human, whereas the foxes were tame. They didn't do anything aggressive. They just didn't really want to be with that human as dogs typically do. So some key ideas from this model that stood out were time. So it took lots of time, many generations to do this. There's some kind of friendliness gene, which kind of takes us back to genetics a little bit. You have to have some kind of human interaction. Humans select, they pick the foxes with the traits that they want to breed together. So a lot of you actually noticed this was very similar to selective breeding. And then they test the friendliness, and they repeat this whole process. They take the most friendly foxes, breed them together, and so on. So I'm going to show you some models from your peers, which I thought were really cool. So yesterday, some of your peers submitted their work. Here, I thought it was really cool because it's kind of like a pedigree that we were working with. They even labeled their generations, and they kind of brought genetics into it and said, okay, maybe FH means like they're kind of friendly. Maybe HH means that they're hostile. Maybe FF means that they're super friendly foxes. So then they actually show how, okay, here's hostile foxes, and then they pick the one that's the friendliest, and they breed them together, and then you get a mix of friendly and hostile. And again, you pick the friendliest ones, you pick the friendliest ones, you pick the friendliest ones until you start getting foxes that are super friendly. So I thought that was really cool. It brought us back to genetics. It brought us back to our unit about Ryan Clark. So thank you to your peer for submitting that. Here's another really cool one. Again, it shows the nicest foxes kind of breeding together until they get a high level of friendliness. This one was really cool. It just labels the nicest foxes and then shows that, okay, these two parents had all these offspring, all a little bit different from each other. So they pick the friendliest foxes, breed those together. They do that again. They do those, and so on and so forth for many generations until the foxes become increasingly friendlier. Here's another one. How have humans begun to domesticate foxes? So you've got domesticated and non-domestic foxes. It takes time. Another key idea, this one, it says it takes many generations. So time was a big factor. Another thing these share in common is that there's lots of foxes being selected for. There's genes, the friendliness genes. So some of those key ideas coming out. Here I thought was a cool one. It was kind of like a timeline about the domestication of foxes. And then here we've kind of got that friendliness gene and that aggressive gene. So you can kind of see your peers' models, which I thought were super cool. And then, so again, they all had those similar key ideas of time, many generations, humans selecting the foxes that they want to breed together, experimentation, and those kind of key ideas that are popping up across all of our models that you submitted and that I looked at in all our explanations. So the other thing that I want to share was you guys had such awesome questions. If you don't see your question here, it doesn't mean it's not awesome. I just tried to choose the ones that came up a lot. So these are questions that came up a lot. How long does this process take? Yes, it says multiple generations, but how many generations does it take? Are domesticated foxes ever going to become like the new norm for pets? Are you going to be able to go to a pet store and just like you would adopt a dog, could you adopt a fox? What might happen if foxes were socialized right away, like they were born and humans were around and they were like, would that help with the socialization? Have they done this with other kinds of animals? Were all domesticated animals made this way? Is this how dogs were made? Is this how cats were made? Another great question were, how were dogs domesticated from wolves? Like, how did they do that? Were humans involved with that? Did it happen naturally? Is it safe to have a wild pet? There were a lot of questions about ethically, like, should we be doing this? Why would somebody want a pet fox? Why are they so expensive? Are there certain kinds of foxes that are more easily domesticated than others? Because we know that there are red foxes, Arctic foxes, fennec foxes. There's all different kinds of foxes. Do any of them domesticate easier than others? Is there a chance that domestic foxes might become wild again? What would happen if you released domesticated foxes into the wild? Would they survive? Is artificial selection the same thing as selective breeding? I loved that question. It came from a lot of people who chose selective breeding as their TED Talks. They noticed there were very similar ideas that in selective breeding, you select the animals you want to breed together. And then artificial selection seems to be a similar idea. And then the last question that really stood out was, does domestication change the fox's physical appearance as well as their behavioral traits? So these were really, really awesome questions, and I hope that we can start to answer some of them as we go through our unit. So the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to fill out this Google form. It's just a quick reflection based off your model. So now that you saw models, our class model, models from our peers, I just want you to go back to your assignment from yesterday and think about, did you have all those ideas? Did you have the idea that you have to have a lot of wild foxes and some have to be friendlier than others? Did you have the idea that this takes time? It takes multiple generations to happen. Did you have the idea that there's a friendliness gene? Did you have the idea that humans choose which foxes to breed together? Did you have the idea that there are then domesticated foxes? And did you have kind of the experimental procedures? So I want to hear how you're thinking, how your model has changed now that you've seen our class model and some from your peers. So kind of steal their ideas and reflect on this Google form. So you're going to say, these are the ideas I had. These are ideas that were missing, but I think are important and I want to add. And then have you gone back and actually revised your assignment from yesterday? The last question that I have for you is, why do you think this process is actually referred to as artificial selection? So think of that word, artificial selection. What do you think that means? What do you think it means in order to artificially select animals? Because that's how they domesticated these foxes, is through the process of artificial selection. So if you had to give that word a definition, what would your definition be? So once you've submitted this Google form, you are good to go. The only last thing that you could possibly do is that I have linked in a live science lesson sign up. Now, I know the other day I put this out, there were so many problems with it. It was view only. I sent it out pretty last minute. I had a few people email that they couldn't make it, that they wanted to do it, but that they couldn't make it during that time because I didn't give them enough notice. So I'm so sorry about that. I got like too excited and I forgot to send it out earlier. But if you would like to join a live science lesson, I'm sending it out early. This is for tomorrow. So if instead of doing your work on your own, you'd rather do it with me, do it with some peers, have a nice science discussion, ask questions, talk to each other, kind of like we would in science class, you are welcome to sign up for our live science class. Again, it's going to be for tomorrow's lesson, and it's going to happen at 12:30. So if you choose to sign up, I'll send you a link tomorrow around 12:25. This document is now, you can edit it, you can add your name, because I know that was a problem yesterday. I got a bunch of emails from people saying, I want to do it, but I can't sign up and it's too late. So I apologize for that, but I'm sending this out proactively, so we'll see how it goes. If no one signs up, I totally get it, because I know that learning at home, sometimes 12:30 isn't ideal. Maybe you are watching your siblings, or maybe you just like doing your work at your own pace. But if you miss that science discussion circle, if you miss doing your work with your peers and being able to ask questions, let's try it. We'll see how it goes. So you can sign up. I'll also put the link to today's assignment with today's assignment, but I think those are all my updates for today. So once you turn in your Google form and you update yesterday's model if needed, you are good to go for today. So I hope you have a wonderful Thursday, and maybe I will see you tomorrow for our live lesson if you're interested. Again, it's completely optional, but I think it could be cool. So bye, everybody.